I didn't plan to break that day. I didn't wake up thinking, today's the day I'm done. But sometimes a single sentence can switch something off inside you. Something that's been quietly burning for years, like a nightlight left on too long. That morning, my boss walked up to me wearing her signature smile, the one she only used when she was about to do something ugly, but in a polished, corporate way. She didn't even look me in the eye, like I was already standing somewhere behind her, part of the background where she thought I belonged. "You're not coming to the corporate retreat?" she said, as calmly as if she were reading the weather forecast. And in that moment, for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel embarrassment, just exhaustion. I slid deeper into my chair and realized that's it. I'm done. Of course, she didn't explain anything to the rest of the team. To them, it looked like I had willingly volunteered to hold down the office, while everyone else headed to the countryside resort to sip Prosecco with top executives, play team-building games, and talk about next year's company strategy. I walked between the rows of open desks, listening to people laugh, pack phone chargers, talk about the pool, the spa, the wine night, and dinner with the CEO. One guy slapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're a hero, man. Thanks for holding the fort." I just nodded. No one had bothered to tell that hero he'd never agreed to cover anything in the first place. She called me into the conference room, small, glass-walled, no privacy at all, the perfect stage for her management style. On the table were folders, my printed numbers, and the presentation I had built over the past 2 weeks. My work. She placed her hand over it like it already belonged to her. "I'll present this myself," she said, without unnecessary details. "You tend to overcomplicate things. What we need is inspiration, not risks." I looked at her and wondered if she ever actually read the slides she presented, or if everything rested solely on her ability to sound confident and laugh in exactly the right places. She didn't wait for a response. She went straight into her favorite move. The words that sound caring, but always mean one thing. "I need you while I climb." "Listen," she started gently in that tone people use when they're pretending to thank you. "You'd be bored there anyway. Retreats are for people doing big things, and you—" She hesitated for half a second. "You're great with details. We really need someone here in the office. You understand." I understood, just not what she meant. What shocked me most was how completely unashamed she was. Not 1 second of doubt, not a flicker of discomfort about taking my ideas and using them in front of the executives. She said it as a simple fact. I wasn't going. End of story. And no one would even notice. To her, I was nothing more than a technical assistant. Like the office printer. Works? Great. Breaks? Call service. No need to remember its name. I left the conference room neither fast nor slowly, just evenly. A strange calm washed over me, like everything had already happened long ago, and I was only realizing it now. My coworkers waved as they packed backpacks. Someone laughed. Someone talked about the gift boxes everyone gets at the retreat. It felt like I was watching all of this through glass. I could hear them, but everything was muted, distant, unreachable. Back at my desk, I turned on the monitor. My project forecast spreadsheet was still open, the same one where I had highlighted the risks she told me not to dramatize. I remembered how I brought those issues up 3 times in our status meetings, how she smiled every time and said, "Yes, yes, we'll consider it. But inspiration is more important." Inspiration. A perfect word when you want to push facts aside. I scrolled through my email history. There were the receipts. Messages proving that I was the one warning about the problems, that I was the one doing late-night revisions, that I handled delicate client negotiations while she focused on her so-called strategic initiatives. Every email was respectful, calm, filled with numbers and recommendations, never aggressive, not because I was afraid, but because I believed that's how a team works. And then it hit me. For years I had been carrying her career on my shoulders, not out of kindness, not as a favor, but through invisible, exhausting work no one ever saw. Not because I was weak, but because I believed it was right. I thought my value came from being the unseen foundation, the part nobody thanks, but everybody needs. The truth was simpler. She was using me like a free safety line. When the office emptied and the buses took away the core team, I allowed myself to just sit there for the first time in years, to be silent, to listen to a quiet that wasn't filled with commands, urgent messages, or comments like, "Fix it, but make it look like I did it." Inside, everything felt calm, strangely calm. I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want an explanation. The only thing I wanted was to never return to the role I had been trapped in again. And I still didn't know that this very calmness would become the beginning of what would eventually shatter her carefully built image, right in front of everyone. When the buses finally left the parking lot and the office went quiet, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Space. Real, physical space in my head. No constant messages popping up. No quick favors. No last minute, "Can you fix this before morning?" I sat there for a minute, just listening to the hum of the AC, and then my inbox pinged. Not from her, but from finance. They needed clarification on 2 numbers in the forecast. Simple questions, routine. Normally, my manager would insist I route everything through her, because we speak as one team. But she was halfway to a luxury resort, and finance wasn't asking her. They were asking me, directly, by name. I opened the spreadsheet, and for the first time, I didn't rush. I wrote a clear, structured answer, included links to my earlier reports, and attached the full risk log I'd updated on Wednesday. The one she told me not to show anyone because it was too pessimistic. I didn't dramatize anything. I didn't soften anything. I just told the truth. 5 minutes later, another email came, this time from the director of operations. He thanked me, personally, said the detail was refreshing, asked if I could send him a short summary of the projections, in your own words, not the team's words, not my manager's words, mine. I sat back in my chair. That was new, but that was just the surface. The real irritation started building when I scrolled through our team chat. Photos from the retreat came in like a flood. People laughing with cocktails, group selfies, my manager front and center in every shot, posing like the retreat was her stage. One of the pictures made my stomach twist. She was holding up my printed slide deck, smiling like she'd authored every line, and then I saw the caption under one of her posts, excited to present my vision for next year. Her vision. I closed the chat, not because it hurt. I think I was past that point, but because something in me snapped into clarity. She wasn't using me. She'd built her entire perception of competence on me, and she didn't even realize how fragile that was. The office slowly emptied as other departments finished their Fridays. Someone walked past my desk and joked, "Man, they owe you big time for staying behind." I smiled politely. People always assumed gratitude existed somewhere behind the scenes. It didn't. By 6, it was just me and the cleaner vacuuming the hallway. I used the quiet to document everything I'd been carrying in my head for months. Not out of spite, out of self-respect. Email chains, meeting notes, timestamps showing when I warned her about slipping timelines, missing data, overpromised deliverables. Nothing emotional. All factual. If someone ever asked why the project shook the way it did, they would have the truth. At 7:42 p.m., an email came in from her, a long, messy bullet list of tasks she forgot to mention earlier, each marked emergency, all due that night, all things she needed for her Saturday presentation. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing, not anger, just a sense of recognition, like seeing a pattern you finally understand. I replied with one calm sentence. These tasks were not part of my assigned workload for today. I'll handle them during business hours on Monday. 2 minutes later. What do you mean? I need these tonight. Don't make this difficult. I didn't answer. I shut down my laptop, packed my bag, and walked out into the cool evening air. For once, I didn't feel guilty. She had built a system where I fixed everything, always. And now she was shocked I wasn't doing it anymore. The next morning, I woke up naturally, without an alarm, made coffee, and sat by the window for the first peaceful Saturday I could remember. Around 10, I checked my phone. A habit, not fear. No emergencies, no calls. Just silence. But that silence meant something had gone very wrong on her end. By noon, messages started trickling into my inbox. Not from her, from people several levels above her. Short, sharp questions about the project's numbers. Requests for documents. Is this accurate? Can you confirm you sent this earlier? Why wasn't this addressed? Each message was a thread she'd pulled loose, trying to hide the truth, and now everything unraveled in her hands. And then one message stood out, from the director who'd emailed me the day before. We're reviewing the materials presented at the retreat. Some inconsistencies came up. I'd like to speak with you directly. No rush. Monday morning is fine. I set my phone down, slowly, carefully, and it hit me. Every quiet warning I'd ever given her, every risk she'd brushed aside with a smile, every number she'd polished for appearance. All of it was now landing exactly where it should have landed months ago, and I wasn't even there to push it. That afternoon, while the leadership team sat in a conference room miles away trying to understand why the presentation didn't match the actual data, I was at home making lunch. Calm. Steady. Present in my own life for the first time in years. They thought the retreat would be her chance to shine. I didn't know it yet, but it was about to become the moment she burned through every illusion she'd built, and the moment the right people saw exactly who had been doing the real work all along. The retreat unraveled faster than anyone expected. I found out in fragments, unanswered calls, stray emails, calendar pings that didn't make sense. By Saturday afternoon, it was clear something had cracked on their side of the world, and all I did was sit at my kitchen table, stirring cold coffee and watching the sunlight creep across the counter. At 3:17 p.m., my phone buzzed with a Teams message from one of the senior analysts who'd gone to the retreat. Not my manager. She was silent. The analyst wrote, "Hey, do you know why the numbers in the deck aren't matching the live dashboard? They're grilling us here." I read the message twice, slowly. Then I typed back, "I submitted the updated forecast Wednesday morning. It should be in the shared folder." He responded almost instantly, "She used a different version. Something is off." Of course it was. She'd taken the file I made 2 weeks ago, the old one, the pretty one, because it made the story cleaner for her presentation. She didn't want risks, fluctuations, or warnings. She wanted something shiny, inspiring. And now the top brass were sitting in a room surrounded by flip charts and strategy boards, staring at data that did not match what she'd promised them, and I wasn't there to fix it. An hour later, another message came, this time from the director of operations himself, a short, tightly worded request. "Can you confirm this discrepancy? We need to understand the delta." I opened the dashboard, checked the numbers, cross-referenced the logs I'd updated. Everything was accurate. Everything had been accurate for days. The only thing inaccurate was the version she'd chosen to present. I replied with clear bullet points, timestamps, links to the email where I'd notified her of the updates. No emotion, no commentary, just facts laid out cleanly. 5 minutes later, he sent a single line, "Understood. Thank you." That was the moment the first real ripple of chaos reached me. By early evening, colleagues started messaging each other in private chats. I could see the pattern forming. Room goes quiet, questions get sharper, someone leaves to double-check something, and suddenly the whole narrative of the retreat shifts from celebration to damage control. Meanwhile, my manager kept posting photos to her Instagram story, smiling in a conference center hallway, clinking glasses at a networking dinner, standing beside a banner with the company logo. All staged confidence. But the messages I saw behind the scenes told a different story. Late-night urgent updates, frantic requests for clarification, people trying to understand how the numbers could be so misaligned. She didn't message me directly until 9:12 p.m. "Why did you send them those risk logs without looping me in?" I blinked at the screen. She thought this was about her power, not the accuracy of the work. I typed slowly, deliberately. Finance asked for clarification. I provided the updated information as required. Her reply came fast. "You made me look unprepared." I stared at that sentence long enough for my coffee to go cold. She wasn't worried about the project failing. She was worried about losing her shine. I didn't answer. On Sunday morning, I woke up to a string of missed calls. Not from her, but from other managers at the retreat. Apparently, they'd been asked to gather in a private session to review inconsistencies. She had to sit there in front of them all and explain why her presentation didn't match the financial reality. And she had no version of the story where I could be blamed. All the documents were time-stamped, all the warnings traceable. Every thread led back to decisions she made. She sent another message around noon. "I need you to fix this before the wrap-up meeting. Please." Not a command, not a threat, a plea. I sat back in my chair and realized something important. I wasn't angry anymore, not even a little. Whatever fire she expected to burn between us, it had gone out days ago. All that was left was clarity, the kind that comes when someone finally sees the true consequences of their own shortcuts. I replied, "I'm not on weekend support. I'll address all work matters on Monday." And for the first time, she didn't argue. That silence, her silence, said more than anything she could have written. She knew she couldn't pull me back into her orbit. She knew the ground beneath her had shifted, and I wasn't going to steady it for her again. Sunday night, the last message came from the operations director. "Please be ready to walk us through the real project status first thing Monday. We'll need your insights." Not her insights, not our team's insights. Mine. I put my phone face down on the table and exhaled slowly. The chaos was already in motion, and I hadn't lifted a finger to start it. All I did was stop holding up a structure that should have collapsed years ago. While they spent the weekend scrambling in conference rooms, whispering behind closed doors, rewriting explanations and excuses, I watched a movie, cooked dinner, and went to bed early. No anxiety, no guilt. Just a steady, quiet certainty that I had finally stepped out of a role that never belonged to me. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. I was finally exactly where I needed to be. Calm, clear, and ready for whatever Monday would bring. Monday morning didn't feel like a judgment day. It felt strangely normal. Like the air had finally settled after a long storm. I didn't realize I'd been living inside. I got to the office at my usual time, set down my bag, made coffee, opened my laptop. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for anything. I wasn't preparing for her voice, her demands, her frantic messages. My own silence felt like armor. At 9:01, the meeting invite popped up. Project review, core leadership only. My name was on it. Hers was too. No one else from our team. When I walked into the conference room, she was already there. Sitting stiffly, hands clasped too tightly, the false confidence she usually wore like perfume completely gone. She looked small, not because she was weak, but because she had finally run out of places to hide. The director of operations nodded at me with a kind of quiet respect I'd never seen from anyone at his level. "Glad you could join us," he said. Not polite, genuine. My manager didn't look at me. They started with her. "Walk us through your presentation from Saturday," the director said. She tried. She really did. But every slide she opened led to a question she couldn't answer. Where did these numbers come from? Why doesn't this match the forecast? Why were risk levels omitted here? She stuttered, deflected, tried to frame everything as team-based decisions. But timestamps don't lie, dashboards don't lie, and the documents I'd sent all weekend were sitting on the big screen like silent witnesses. At some point, someone asked, "Why wasn't the updated report included?" She froze. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again. No sound. And for the first time since I'd known her, she didn't have a story ready. No polished phrasing, no narrative, no charm. The director turned to me. "Can you walk us through the actual project state?" I nodded and opened my laptop. No theatrics, no speeches. Just a clean, concise explanation of the data. What changed, why it changed, what decisions were made, what warnings were logged and ignored. I never said she didn't listen. I didn't need to. The chain of emails on the screen said it for me. When I finished, the room was quiet. Not tense, just thoughtful. The kind of quiet that follows clarity. "Thank you," the director said. And then, after a pause, "This was the most accurate briefing we've had on this project in months." My manager looked down at the table. She didn't argue. She didn't interrupt. She knew. The consequences weren't dramatic, no shouting, no theatrics. That's not how real companies work. It was all painfully procedural. The director closed his notebook and with a calm, almost gentle tone said, "We'll be reallocating responsibilities. Effective immediately, the project will move under new oversight." He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. Her eyes flicked up for a second, searching for something. Sympathy, maybe. Some kind of lifeline. But there was nothing I could offer. She hadn't just burned our working relationship. She'd built her entire career on a foundation I maintained for her. And the moment I stepped away, the structure collapsed under its own weight. After the meeting, she followed me into the hallway. "Can we talk?" Her voice was soft, almost shaking. Not angry, scared. I turned. "Waited." She struggled with the words. Why didn't you warn me it would blow up like this?" "I did," I said. Not cold, just honest. "Every time I sent you a risk log. Every time I stayed late fixing something you presented without reading. Every time I told you the numbers didn't match." She closed her eyes. A long, slow exhale. "I didn't think it mattered." "It did," I said. "You just didn't want it to." She nodded once, then walked away. No fight left. By afternoon, HR sent out a quiet update. She was being reassigned to a non-strategic internal coordination role. A safe corner of the company. No budgets, no presentations, no influence. Not a firing, but a clear step down. The kind people notice without speaking about. Later that same day, the director called me into his office. He thanked me again, not for exposing anyone, but for the clarity and professionalism. He didn't offer me her old job, and honestly, I was relieved. I didn't want it. That role had been poisoned for me long before today. Instead, he offered something better, a transfer to a different department, directly under leadership that valued transparent work and didn't need someone to hide behind. A clean slate. When I left the office, the sun was setting, warm light through the glass. People walking home, talking, laughing, completely unaware that my entire working life had shifted by a few degrees. Just enough to aim me somewhere new. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindictive. I felt calm, like the world had finally aligned with the truth that had been there all along. I wasn't a background assistant. I wasn't a fix-it ghost. I was the one doing the work. And now the people who mattered knew it. That night, I sat on my couch with the window open, listening to the city outside. No buzzing phone, no urgent messages, no expectations that I'd drop everything to cover someone else's negligence. Just peace. The funny thing is, she thought, not inviting me to the retreat, would keep me small, quiet, invisible. Instead, it gave me the space to finally stop carrying her career and start building my own.